Welcome to the Geek Therapy Radio pre-roll. 90% of this podcast is definitely James Webb Space Telescope, JWST. A lot of y'all have been waiting for my input on this because I have a sordid history here on this radio show with the JWST and all the crying wolf about launch dates, but it's up now. So we talk mostly about that and then some other geek goodies. So welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. Enjoy. Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. All right, this is it. This is the episode where I finally speak my piece about the James Webb Space Telescope. Now, finally speak my piece. The reason I'm phrasing it like that is I have talked about the James Webb Space Telescope since the inception of Geek Therapy Radio back in 2017. I would bring it up. I would do a show about it every time NASA would release, James Webb Space Telescope is scheduled to launch on March whatever, like 2017. And then that date would come and go. All right, James Webb Space Telescope is scheduled to launch in winter of 2019 or whatever it is. Those are just arbitrary dates. The point is, the James Webb Space Telescope, I don't know if a lot of y'all realize, I would assume that a lot of my listeners realize this, but it was supposed to launch well over 10 years ago. I think it was supposed to launch in like 2009. The James Webb Space Telescope, or JWST, as I'll refer to it many times here throughout the podcast and broadcast, it was supposed to launch a long, long time ago. It's been in the works for a long, long time. Over 10 years it's been in the works. So to precurse this conversation, I feel like I was so disappointed over the last 10 years at all the crying wolf of JWST's launch date. And if y'all remember, my longtime listeners, I made an announcement, maybe a couple years ago, a year ago, whatever, the last time I talked about JWST. It's kind of like the Atari VCS, not to get too sidetracked, but I made an announcement about the JWST that I'm just going to stop talking about it. I'm going to go radio silent about the JWST until not until it launches, but after it starts sending back the first images from space. It is 1 million miles away from Earth in orbit. And I said, there is let's say it does launch, because remember, my feelings were hurt. It was emotional at this point that I just stopped trusting all the launch date announcements. I said, I will basically believe it when I see it. Not only will I believe it after it launches, but I will only believe it until I see the first images. And that is purely coming from an emotional place where me and astronomers around the world have been routinely let down by these launch date announcements. Now, let me just start here by saying I completely understand. It is nobody's fault that the launch date kept getting put back and put back and put back. Obviously, what scientists and different agencies and what NASA was trying to do here was not just putting up another Hubble Space Telescope. It wasn't just putting up another big reflector in the sky and pointing it at stuff. It was arguably one of the most immense scientific and technological achievements and undertakings in human history. I can't stress that enough. This is one of the most challenging technological endeavors human beings have ever made. I'm not going to put it on the exact same scale as getting a human being to the moon, but in many ways, there's a lot more complication in getting the JWST up there, James Webb Space Telescope up there, than there was getting astronauts to the moon. What made the Apollo missions so amazing, and don't get me wrong, the Apollo missions are kind of one of, if not the top 3 pinnacles, depending who you ask, of human achievement. And what makes it even more remarkable is that we did that in the 1960s. That whole program dates back even first. So we landed on the moon in July of 1969 with Apollo 11. But before that, all the groundwork that NASA had been doing from basically the 40s, 50s, and in the 60s, it was very quick, actually, the way we went to the moon after World War II. If you think about timescales and human evolution, we went to the moon very quickly. John F. Kennedy announced right here in Houston at Rice University that in his campaign before the election that we will go to the moon and do the other things, not because they're easy, but because they're hard. The other things, by the way, is civil rights. It was giving equal rights to every American, no matter what color or where you come from. That's the other things that he's talking about that we're going to do because they're difficult, not because they're easy. But anyways, he set that before the United States and tasked NASA, we're going to go to the moon within this decade and do the other things. Not because they're easy, but because they're hard. So we went to the moon with 1960s technology. 1960s technology. There's probably not a lead acid battery on any modern space probe. There's probably not a lead acid battery in the James Webb Space Telescope. If there are batteries up there, they're undoubtedly lithium. If they aren't, a more advanced kind of technology that NASA's testing or utilizing that we don't quite know about yet, or that's not made it to consumer devices yet. But anyways, yeah, so that was the monumental task, is that in monumental achievement in the 1960s is that we went to the moon with 1960s technology. What we have done now with the James Webb Space Telescope was an incredible technological and scientific achievement. So I don't blame the scientists, I don't blame the engineers for those setbacks in launch date, because I completely understand here. It's a very difficult thing you're doing. But part of me took it, kind of emotionally, and was displeased by it because of all the hype. Like, stop announcing things. If you have a track record over the past decade of not reaching these launch date goals, then stop announcing launch dates until you're actually on the launch pad and you're breaking through the atmosphere. Otherwise, it's all crying wolf. Elon Musk does a lot of the same thing with some of his products. The Cybertruck was supposed to come out this year. You're not getting the Cybertruck this year. Elon Musk likes to announce things that don't come out for years. Full self-driving autopilot. Just announce it when it's ready. That's my whole thing. But JWST is out there. We're going to talk about that more. You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio, geektherapyradio.com for more information. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. How are you liking this microphone that I'm using? For those of you who maybe haven't listened to the podcast in a while or listened to the broadcast, I've finally bit the bullet and purchased a Electro Voice RE20. It is the industry standard broadcast microphone. You've listened to a lot of my radio shows in the past before I stopped working directly for iHeart in 2021. So you've already heard plenty of shows recorded on the RE20, technically the RE27ND, with a neodymium magnet and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, I as far as recording these podcasts and these shows from home, I was using my tried and true MXL V67G condenser microphone, but I've switched over now to my just industry standard Electro Voice RE20. How are you liking it? I don't want to get too sidetracked because we're talking about JWST, the James Webb Space Telescope. I went over my emotional issues that I've had with the launch dates and the crying wolf on the launch dates and everything, but it's actually out there. It's actually up there. It's 1 million miles away from Earth. It's in orbit. And obviously, over the past week or a couple weeks that depending on when you're listening to this, we've seen the first official images from the JWST, and they are tear-inspiring. They are amazing. I felt like crying, and my eyes did well up when I saw the first images coming from JWST because of how far and how deep you could see. I want to remind you all right now real quick. So most of you, I don't think it's a stretch of the imagination to say that most of us saw the first images from the James Webb Space Telescope just scrolling through social media or scrolling through Google or on the web or whatever. But the point is, you were looking at it on your smartphone mostly, or on your tablet mostly. That's how most of us saw those first images, is, scrolling through Facebook, boom, everybody and their grandma was posting images of this. And just seeing that, in a little 3-inch square thing on your phone screen. I know your phone screen's way bigger than 3 inches, but I'm saying that little square that appears in your feed is, I don't know, what is it, 3 inches diagonal, whatever. You're seeing it that way, and it's that impressive, that small. And yes, you could kind of pinch and zoom in there a little bit with your smartphone or on your tablet. What you have to realize here, not only is that image a patch of sky the size of a grain of sand at arm's length, all those galaxies, those thousands of galaxies in that image, that just occupies a patch of the sky that is the size of a grain of sand at arm's length. That's just what's there. It's almost imperceptible. You can't even see a grain of sand hardly from arm's length. So anyways, what I'm getting at is here, we were so impressed with that, seeing it in our news feeds on our phones and tablets. When you can easily go to nasa.gov, where am I? web.nasa.gov, and you can access the full res images of what the web puts out and zoom to your heart's content in detail that you can't even imagine. Those little red blobs that on your phone screen you can't quite make out because it's so small. Go to web.nasa.gov, webb.nasa.gov, and there's other places where you can get it too. But get the full res images, and these files are massive files. I'm not talking about the James Webb specifically in this instance, but I've downloaded other images from like the Hubble and things like that, and these are gigs worth of image, like one image. You're like, what is the deal with this image, whatever, being 3 gigabytes large? Like, that's, you're used to JPEGs of a few thousand kilobytes, like little easily shareable things. Like, the images coming off of the James Webb Space Telescope and Hubble and other instruments out there in space are gigantic in size, coming from Mars, from the Mars rovers and Curiosity and everything like that. Don't just assume that what you see in your Facebook feed that's the image, that's all you can see of the image. If you want to, you can quite easily just open a new tab or open a new app on your phone, open up Chrome or whatever, or Firefox or DuckDuckGo or whatever you use, and just look for the full res images of these famous images that you're seeing in the news and on your news feed. You will be absolutely blown away by how huge these files are and how far you can zoom in to them. There's a kind of a funny thing that I wanted to mention because it just popped into my mind. One of our radio stations on here reposted a very funny meme in regards to the James Webb Space Telescope and then like security cameras. It was basically the now world famous image, the first image coming off of James Webb Space Telescope, where you're looking at galaxies 13.5 billion light years away from the beginning of time. And then on the right is a security camera of a person 10 feet away that's just a blob. Like, you can't make out anything on the security camera. And I didn't comment on that, and I didn't leave anything, talk to anybody about that, because I didn't want to be that guy at the party to, describe the differences between the security camera and the James Webb Space Telescope. But there is a little bit of truth to that ideology, and I kind of, that sentiment, and I don't know if I've mentioned on the show before, but the phones in our the cameras, it's kind of a Freudian slip to say that. The cameras in our phones, let me get the order right, the cameras in our phones are so good that they, in a lot of cases, put security cameras to shame. They're completely different technologies, and they're completely different uses, and I don't want to get into all the technicals of it, but still, believe me, there are plenty of security cameras out there that can zoom in to the hairs in the pores on your nose, that can zoom into who you're talking to on the cell phone to see the number on the screen, that they can zoom into your driver's license, they can zoom into your credit card in amazing detail, high resolution detail. So there are security cameras. Mark, just don't be ignorant about this. I mean, there are security cameras out there that can basically zoom into your brain to see what you're thinking. They're so powerful and detailed. I'm being a little bit facetious, but yeah, the whole meme. Here's what we can see with the James Webb. Here's what we see with a surveillance camera. A little blobby perp. It's funny, but it's not accurate. The James Webb could not turn around and look at that same perp and get any sort of detail out of it. It would look way worse. Here's the thing. People would ask sometimes. I remember when we got the best images we've ever seen from our satellite and our probe that flew around Pluto, which is still the 9th planet in my heart. I watched Cocomelon with Riker, and it's like, all 8 planets. I'm like, it's 9 planets. Anyways, I want to get too sidetracked with that. But I remember when we first got the images back from Pluto in detail and resolution, obviously that we'd never seen before because we sent a probe to fly by Pluto. People asked, well, why can't the Hubble get a detailed picture like this of Pluto? And I saw a comparison, like here's what Hubble could get of Pluto, and it was still just not much better than a grainy, fuzzy speck on a screen. So I'm curious what the James Webb can see of Pluto from where it is, and I bet you, mark my words on this, that Pluto from the James Webb will look a bit better than the Hubble, but it is still an extremely hard object to photograph that is so far away with such little light. And yes, I know galaxies at the birth of time 13.5 billion years ago are hard to see too, and the James Webb is pulling in all the photons from there. But the fact remains, Pluto is still a very hard target to see in any detail. So while we will definitely, if James Webb chooses to point there, definitely see Pluto from the James Webb in much better, I'll just say better detail than we have seen from the Hubble, it's still going to be nowhere near as vivid and clear and high resolution and detailed as a camera right in orbit of Pluto. Like it's way easier to take a picture of Pluto from a few hundred miles away than it is to take a picture of Pluto from billions of miles and kilometers away. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of make that realization about camera technology and kind of how it works and focal lengths and different things like that, and just kind of put that in your brain that's how cameras work. A telescope in orbit versus a camera that's on an aircraft right on top of the subject. It's a little bit different. So anyways, let's talk more about James Webb Space Telescope coming up. You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. Feel free to email me directly, johnny@geektherapyradio.com, JOHNNY@geektherapyradio.com. Also all the socials. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. How poignant for this episode and for this radio show that the bump music you're listening to by Adam Young, who you may know as Owl City, the bump music is titled Pale Blue Dot, from an album he released, a soundtrack album he released called Voyager, all about the Voyager space probe. And Pale Blue Dot refers to, Voyager looking back at Earth. I think it was from Saturn. When it passed Saturn and Voyager got all those awesome pictures of the rings of Saturn, and through the rings of Saturn was a pale blue dot, and that was Earth. So when you get that far away from an object, from a planet, it's very difficult to pull in detail. Now, we can look at, I guarantee you, when James Webb points its camera at Jupiter, it's going to be even stupider. It's going to be stupider how good the quality is, but it's not going to be anywhere near, Juno, I believe we sent to Jupiter, taking those extremely high resolution and detailed pictures right out off the atmosphere of Jupiter, up close and personal. It's amazing. But James Webb pointed at Jupiter. It's going to look amazing because Hubble pointed at Jupiter. It looked amazing. The thing about Jupiter and Saturn is that they are gargantuan. They are huge planets. It's not like Pluto, which is basically a floating rock in comparison, in why Pluto is no longer the ninth planet, because it's technically too small under the new categorization of planets. But Jupiter and Saturn are massive. You can look through your telescope at home. I can go in my backyard right now, even using a little 3-inch, aperture telescope, 3-inch mirror reflector telescope. You can look at Jupiter and see the bands of the atmosphere. You can even see moons surrounding Jupiter just with a little cheap sub $100 backyard telescope, and you can see the rings of Saturn in pretty decent, awe-inspiring detail from the same telescope, because those are known as gas giants. They're huge. They are very big. If you look at Mars through a backyard telescope, it depends, because there's lots of dust storms on Mars. But if you look at it and it's relatively quiet, you can kind of see little dark areas and features of the surface very, very non-distinctly. If you're really lucky, you can see the polar ice cap, like little white spludge on the cap of Mars through the backyard telescope. So yeah, James Webb is going to be able to get a lot better images than you can with the backyard telescope, because it's 1,000,000 miles closer and has zero atmosphere to go through, and simply gargantuan mirrors that can capture simply gargantuan amounts of light. So anyways, let's talk a little bit about that a little bit, and like what the James Webb can gather. So I think it's important to point out here that the James Webb Space Telescope is very much an instrument, a critical instrument in the exploration of exoplanets. That is, looking at planets that are orbiting neighboring stars. And one of the things that James Webb is going to be able to do is not only have our best shot of actually optically looking at a planet, not a star, but a planet around a star, which, as I'm saying it's always mind-boggling. So not only will we be able to potentially see the actual planet itself, it's going to be pale blue dot, pale red dot, pale orange dot, whatever it is, it's a little blob. The fact that it's a little blob, yeah, to the layperson might seem unimpressive. It's just wow, okay. Well, you're looking at a friggin' planet. You're looking at another planet that isn't one of our planets around our sun. That alone, that little, when you put it into perspective of what that little splodge is on your screen, that it's another planet on a distant star, it's remarkable, and it's breathtaking, and it's awe-inspiring that we're able to see that now. But that's not the most impressive thing. It is impressive, but that's not the most impressive thing. What's impressive is the instruments that the James Webb Space Telescope contains. I think, back to what I was saying, a lot of lay people might think that it's just a fancy camera out in space so you can look at galaxies. There are hundreds of more instruments, dozens of more instruments on the James Webb Space Telescope that's not only going to help us see the planet around the star, even as a little smudge, but it has instruments that are capable of doing what's called I always have a hard time pronouncing this. Spectroscopy, which basically what it means is it's transmission spectroscopy. Basically what it means is that when a planet goes in front of a star, it can see, the James Webb Space Telescope will see the light passing through that planet's atmosphere from its star and be able to determine what elements are in that atmosphere. So let me kind of complete this picture for you. That means when James Webb undoubtedly finds planets within the star's habitable zone, that means stars that are planets that are close enough and farther enough from the star that it is similar to Earth-like conditions as far as the heat that the atmosphere holds in or emits or whatever, that our planet Earth exists within the habitable zone of our star, and we have oxygen, we have nitrogen, and we have water and carbon dioxide and all the different elements on Earth that are conducive to life, that you can be able to detect these things on planets orbiting other stars now through the use of spectroscopy. So If an exoplanet goes in front of its star and we use our spectrometers to see what the atmosphere is made of, the elements in that atmosphere, say, oh, okay, that atmosphere definitely contains oxygen. That atmosphere definitely contains nitrogen. We are detecting water vapor. We are detecting greenhouse gases. Here's the thing that I mentioned on my personal Facebook that almost, none of y'all saw because it's my personal Facebook. When you're using spectroscopy and we start getting back signatures of combustion, so, I'll let that sink in for a second. A lot of the times we're looking for water. We're looking for traces of water. We're looking for water on planets in our own solar system. To me, equally as important, if not a more direct identifier of intelligent life on other planets, because it's one thing to speculate whether a planet has life. If there's life on another planet, but it's just like plants, it's just, as we know it anyways, it's just kind of plants, and maybe there's some low intelligence creatures or sub-evolved, whatever. That's one thing. Obviously, that's going to change the world. That's going to change life as we know it on our planet once we discover life on another planet. And I believe it's coming. It'd be a stretch. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we may discover life on another planet in my lifetime. I am 38 years old. Don't know how many decades I have left on this earth, but I think we'll put a human on Mars, and I think we will detect certain life on other planets. So we talked about detecting water. Every time we're looking around at different planets around our solar system and even trying to look at planets outside the solar system, we're looking for traces of water because water is what we know to be conducive to life on Earth. Primordial soup, all that kind of good stuff. It all depends on water. Everything in this world needs water to survive. The plankton lives in water, is fed by energy from the sun. The plankton is the basis of the entire food chain, and it requires water. Our bodies are 75% water, or whatever it is, 76% water. Water is very important. So that will determine, the likelihood of life, but a sure sign, the bullseye, the guaranteed indicator of life and the guaranteed indicator of intelligent life is if we start detecting combustion. Greenhouse gases that you get from combustion of fossil fuels. That will tell us that planet has intelligent life, engaging in industry, maybe engaging in local travel, transportation, developing their own technologies, using fossil fuels to power things, to make things, to do whatever. If you detect traces of combustion on another planet, not only have you definitely found life, but you have definitely found intelligent life. So I'm waiting for the detection of combustion and gases from combustion on another planet. That's the no-doubter that there's life. And if we find a planet that atmosphere is comprised of a lot of combustion elements, we are going to laser beam focus our antennas on that and just start blasting them with radio waves to make contact. It's basically like SETI, but now you know exactly where you'd be looking. That's the type of instrumentation that the James Webb Space Telescope has. So it's not just pretty pictures that we're going to use as wallpapers and lock screens on our phones and on our desktops, wallpapers. This is the best instrument we have out there in the quest to find life elsewhere in the solar system. It is not far-fetched to say that, mathematically speaking, life is a virtual guarantee out there in the universe. James Webb is going to take us all the closer to discovering it, and that means all the closer to making contact with it. Is that going to wind up being a good or bad thing? Will they let us into the Federation? Will they give us warp? More Geek Therapy Radio. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. All right, we are in the fourth and final segment. Now I'll do my little pluggity-doo-dahs. It's real quick. It's just Geek Therapy Radio, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, geektherapyradio.com, and you can email me directly, Johnny, Johnnny, at geektherapyradio.com. You can also just go to geektherapyradio.com, and the first thing you friggin' see is a contact form. Just you type in your name or whatever, your alias if you want, and just kind of, it asks you, what's your geek thing? And that's kind of how you get in touch with me. It just basically dings my inbox, says, hey, you got a message on your website. It does not sign you up for a mailing list. I do not try to sell you stuff. I technically have a pitiful merch store. I don't think anybody's bought anything for the merch store because I don't promote it enough. It's kind of way out, tucked away. I opened it during 2020 and during and we still have ongoing, production issues and things like that, transport issues of actually making things. But it exists. All I'm saying is you fill out, if you contact me through the website, it does not put you on a mailing list. It doesn't send you anything. It doesn't like pimp my merch or anything like that. It's just literally just a way to talk to me. The best way to talk to me, I'll tell you, the best way to get my attention quickly is Twitter. I think it's at Geek Therapy KPRC on Twitter. Like literally, if you just got onto Twitter or anything really and just type in Geek Therapy Radio and look for the red, white, and black color scheme, that's how you got me. But Twitter is a fantastic way to at me and get my attention instantly. I check Twitter throughout the day. A lot of my favorite radio hosts and tech people are on Twitter, so I'm constantly cruising through Twitter. And I'll see my little inbox or the notification. And it's a very quick way to get to me. Email's good too, obviously, but Twitter is your best shot of getting my attention immediately. I had somebody ask me, Kenzo, shout out Kenzo in the Netherlands. You asked me if I had played the Mr. FPGA or have any experience with FPGA, emulation in general. FPGA, what is it? Field programmable, off the top of my head, field programmable. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on it. I don't want to look it up. I'll look it up right now as I'm recording, and I'll fill this time of Google searching FPGA meaning field programmable gate array. I knew it. Gate array. Field programmable gate array. Anyway, it's the most what's the word I'm looking for? Accurate way of emulating other systems, other like video game systems and other computers, for instance. So there are devices out there. I have talked on the show a lot, in the past about how I was so hyped for the Analog Pocket, which is an FPGA-based device. So if you play Game Boy games or Super Nintendo games or Game Gear games or whatever, old school systems on the Analog Pocket, that it would use field programmable gate array, FPGA, to emulate an actual circuit, because it is an actual circuit. It's making actual circuits to emulate actual hardware. It's still emulation. Technically, because it's not playing a Game Boy on not a Game Boy, FPGA is still technically emulation, but it's the most accurate way of emulation because you're using hardware to emulate hardware. Most emulation is done in software. Like, as you know it, like you're trying to play, PlayStation 2 games on your, I was going to say Mac. You're not playing PlayStation 2 games on Mac, not easily, at least, not without Boot Camp and other, emulating PC. It's a mess. Better example, if you're playing Super Nintendo on your PC or your phone or your Mac, it's using software to emulate, and it's running the software through your graphics card, your GPU, whatever, sometimes your CPU. It's using software to emulate hardware. FPGA, this is a way better way to put it, uses hardware to emulate hardware. So it's a much more accurate way to emulate other systems. But Kenzo, I already responded to your email. I don't have any experience with it myself. I haven't played it yet. I was so hyped for the Analog Pocket. I still am hyped for the Analog Pocket, but I have not bought an Analog Pocket. What do they cost? Like $200 or $230? I knew they had some supply issues in the past. I'll get an Analog Pocket at some point in the near future. It's already been hacked to allow you to put ROMs on a micro SD card, which we all knew would happen. But I'll get it at some point in the future. I want to point out something here. That Asaf, who's often in Tel Aviv, in Israel, at the end of the last show that I did, I mentioned that I had crowdfunded on Indiegogo the GPD WinMax 3. By the way, it's not the 3, it's a GPD WinMax 2. So let me just rectify that. Sometimes I'm going to say things on here just in passing, and I'll get things a little bit wrong. Just know that I'm trying. Things just kind of slip out, and I'm not doing it on purpose. The GPD WinMax 2, I did crowdfund it. The reason I'm bringing this up is because Asaf asked me, he's like, I thought you didn't pre-order things. I was like, yeah, I usually don't. That's my general rule of thumb is I don't pre-order things, until they come out. but that is especially true with software. The last game that I pre-ordered, I'll put things on the wish list, but I won't pre-order, like on Steam or in the Nintendo eShop or whatever like that. I will put things on the wish list, but I will not be giving Nintendo or whoever $40 for a game that doesn't exist yet. I will never do that again. The last time I did that was with Street Fighter V, and that was the fool me twice. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We've all been fooled so many times by pre-ordering that it's just a rule of thumb, don't do it, especially with software. Now, I did pre-order / crowdfund the GPD WinMax 2. I have been waiting for a device like this all of my life. Just the perfect all-in-one device that not only, plays games on, it has integrated like PS Vita-esque controls on it, but that had a powerful enough GPU that I could do video editing on the go and a powerful enough CPU to do whatever else I need to do, video editing also. So not only is it an amazing device that could play AAA games and emulate almost anything under the sun, if not everything currently under the sun on it, but I can get real work done on it in a very travel-friendly form factor. So many ports, it makes every Apple device shudder and weep. It's just a perfect device. But here's why I crowdfunded it. Here's why I pre-ordered this hardware. And I told us off about this. I said, I have done so with GPD in the past. They have a very good proven track record. It's not just me, and I'm not promoting GPD in any way, shape, or form or telling you that you should definitely go crowdfund this thing. I'm just saying I have with GPD in the past on 2 separate products myself crowdfunded and pre-ordered, and it's been wonderful. And you typically, when you crowdfund, you typically get a pretty substantial discount, and that's nothing is different here with the GPD WinMax 2. There's a really good discount when you pre-order, and if it's a company that has proven itself with a track record of delivering on time and delivering good products, excellent products, and I have a personal experience with this company, backing them in the past, it's easier for me to do. Now, like there's companies like AYN and stuff like that, making the AYN, the Neo and different devices, and Loki and stuff like coming out. Really cool, coming out with like the 6800 AMD chip and other chips, other AMD chips, even Intel chips. But they don't have the same track record as GPD does. So I'm way less likely ever to crowdfund a company like that until it has kind of proven itself. I'm not saying AYN is a bad company at all. I just don't have experience crowdfunding them or pre-ordering from them, so I just won't until I see that they have a proven track record. GPD has a proven track record. I've experienced that proven track record, so I did crowdfund that. Last thing I want to say, I am on a dual screen setup here with my laptop. I'm using an app called Super Display that I personally just discovered like a day or two ago. It lets you use your Android, this is not an ad, this lets you use your Android device, whether it's your phone or tablet, as an external monitor with your PC, and it works flawlessly. They do like a 3-day trial period. I bought the full version for $10 within the first 30 seconds. Amazing. I can take my Samsung Galaxy Tab S6 with me on the road, attach it to my Asus or my Zephyrus G14 here, and have an external monitor that's accurate and fast, and you can even game casually on it. It's just amazing. You don't have to bring an external monitor, just use your tablet or your phone as an external monitor. It is called Super Display. You download the app in Google Play Store, download the driver for Windows, and you're off to the races. You are worthy of love. You're worthy of giving and receiving love, and you're worthy of your own self-respect. Thank you so much for listening to Geek Therapy Radio. Tell your friends about Geek Therapy Radio. Take care.